Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. I've been doing a countdown of my favorite video games of all time through each day of the year, and coming in at number 140 is Pokemon Sword and Shield. Okay, before I get into the actual game here, I want to mention that if you like these videos, I announced a Patreon at the start of the month, and that goes live on September 1st. You can check out the info from the announcement video in the description below so you can make your own rankings and maybe even tell me how wrong I am in a ton of future videos. On to the game. There's a few things I want to preface this with before I really dive into it. First, what you're seeing is Pokemon Sword, not Shield. Not that it matters that much, but if you're curious, there it is. Second, I've never bought or played any of the DLC expansions for this, so this ranking is based purely on the base game. Alright, let's get into it. The 8th generation of Pokemon brings the mainline games to the Nintendo Switch, and along with it, a marked change for the overall designs of the game. Some of the new ideas presented in Sword and Shield are great, some aren't. There was a lot of ambition that went into this game, and unfortunately, despite being as huge of a franchise as Pokemon is, with all of the money in the world, I think they bit off a bit more than they could chew. A lot of lessons were learned from these games, but that doesn't stop it from being an overall enjoyable experience. I do still like the game, I just think it could have been better. I'm assuming you generally understand how Pokemon games work if you're watching this video, so I'm not going to give a whole overview of all of the mechanics, but I will talk about some new stuff as it comes up. So what does the game do right? Well, for starters, the starters! Right off the bat, the game is pretty exciting. You live in a small farming town in Galar, a new-to-us region in Pokemon that's heavily inspired by the United Kingdom. Your neighbor and best friend, Hop, is excited to start his Pokemon journey, and you're going to get dragged along with him. You see, his older brother is Leon, an actually great character, both in the game and in the anime, who is the absolute undefeated champion. The in-universe GOAT of Pokemon battling. Like, literally. He's never lost in his entire life. Ever. His Charizard's taking wing steroids or something. But none of this goes to his head. He's a very relaxed, fun-loving person who wants nothing more than for someone to beat him. In an effort to foster this, he gifts you and Hop each a Pokemon of your choice, between Grookey, Sobble, and Scorbunny. I like all of these starters, and in my first playthrough though, I did pick Grookey, mostly because the idea of a little monkey whacking people with a stick was funny to me, and I got to yell out, "He's gonna Grook ya!" Imagine my delight when I found out that Grookey evolves into Thwackey. In this playthrough, I'm recording to show off for the early game though. I picked Scorbunny, mostly just for a change of pace. Some other highlights of the early game include mostly the other new Pokemon there. Wooloo is a very round sheep, and was one of the first Pokemon revealed for the game. It's so cute, and so round! They don't actually run because they have stumpy little feet, so instead they roll everywhere. Importantly, these Wooloo are herded around by Yamper, which is a corgi with a heart on its butt. Yeah, a lot of the new Pokemon in Gen 8 are awesome. I won't be getting into all of my opinions for the new Pokemon in this video though, but if you do want to see my ranking for them, check out the companion video linked in the description that was released alongside this one today. Anyways, you follow a lost Wooloo in need of help into the nearby, very creepy woods, where you're confronted by a very mysterious Pokemon that you don't recognize. Well, your character doesn't recognize it, but you should. It's on the box. After getting rescued by Leon, he sets you on the path to Pokemon greatness by encouraging you to take on the gym challenge. Take the train to a nearby major city, Motostoke, except the train has to stop because of Wooloo on the tracks. There really is nothing going on in that perfect little heads of theirs. So you hop off the train and discover the first poorly executed great idea in this game. The wild area is a very open expanse of wilderness with tons of biome diversity and huge amounts of Pokemon, and is the home to the game's main gimmick. More on that in a bit. There's a few reasons I don't like the wild area's execution, but the main one is that for the most of the game, it's just way too small. You're not allowed to just explore all of it right away, and you have to stay pretty on rails despite all of the opportunities the wild area gives for a more organic way of exploring the game. And then late in the game, it feels like it's the only zone worth spending any time in, because it's the only zone containing the game's big gimmick. And while it's fairly sizable with a lot of diversity, not only in its environments, but the impact random weather has on the Pokemon available at any given moment, it's not that big. And I really do like a lot of the other zones of the game and wish I had more excuses to spend time in them after I've gone through them the first time just on the rails. That's the other thing the game did really well. Despite some complaints people have about the graphical fidelity, which I do largely agree with, especially regarding rendering distance, the design of many of the zones are fantastic. Each city feels really unique, and the paths leading to them have a lot of great views that creates a ton of thematic reasons to find a lot of the Pokemon there. The cities feel bustling and alive, though there's not actually that many buildings you can enter, but they look great. A lot of the visual design of the game is wonderful, even though the implementation was lacking. Anyways, once you're at Motostoke, you get to sign up for the gym challenge. Unlike in other games, this is an organized season / league / whatever thing with stadiums and television broadcasts and everything. Organizing it all is a friendly, eccentric billionaire owning basically every industry in the region. Totally not a bad guy, dude with a goatee. Okay, the story here isn't amazing, but frankly, it usually isn't in Pokemon games. He's looking to harness immense energy to basically provide limitless power to the entire region, and he actually has the good of the people at heart, but it's just one little tiny problem that he doesn't realize he'll bring about the end of days to do it. Won't be the first time in a Pokemon game, and I'm sure it won't be the last. You see, energy is actually his background. That's what all of the industry he owns focuses on, and he even created some pretty sweet tech that you get access to right away, because you're the chosen one or whatever. The main gimmick of this game is Dynamaxing. The Galar region is host to some crazy huge energy leaks, and that causes some Pokemon to become, well, large. Throughout the story, you'll mostly only experience this against gym leaders, which are pretty fun fights. After doing a little puzzle challenge thing, you get to fight a gym leader for their badge. Importantly, their last Pokemon in each fight will be Dynamaxed, but you can do it too, to any of your Pokemon. You can only do this once per battle though, and it only lasts up to 3 turns. But what it does is first, make your Pokemon huge. Second, it gives them a crazy stat boost. And third, it upgrades their attacks. Unfortunately, you lose a lot of the variety in your attacks, as your moves are based pretty much just on type while Dynamaxed. It's fun, it's silly. Some Pokemon get new forms if you level up their Dynamax level or whatever they call it, which is definitely fun. Snorlax gets a tree on his belly. Meowth gets long. Alchemy turns into the biggest cake you'll ever see. Pikachu is fat again. This is all fun, though I do dislike that you have to use items or catch them from Gigantamax raids to utilize them. It makes the Pokemon you already have feel lesser almost, and feels like it's more work just for the sake of it. Grinding is nothing new to Pokemon games, but this feels different to me, even though I can't actually quite place why. I like the gym battles, and I like the idea of it being a big televised ordeal. Most of the games made the gym fights feel like they're a big deal, but then it's just kinda you in a room fighting another person in a room, and that's kind of it. Thematically, this is a good change. There's some other fun stuff in the game, especially if you like the more pet simulator aspects of the franchise. You'll like camping. You can play with your Pokemon, which is pretty cute. Just check out the Carkol. He's so happy, and his wheels are spinning, and I love him. And then he evolves, and he stops being cute, and is no longer interesting to me. But importantly, you can also make curry. Good lord, does this region love curry. There's even a curry dex with 151 different kinds of curry you can make. There's other food-related things too, and one of the things the game does really well is making Pokemon interesting to evolve. My favorite new way to evolve something from this game is evolving Milcery into Alcremie. First, get yourself a Milcery. It's a little dollop of sentient sweet cream as a Pokemon. Second, head over to a battle cafe and challenge the cafe master. It'll be easy, especially if you have poison or steel Pokemon. Once you beat him, each day, you can get a sweet treat from him. Many of them can be given to a Milcery to hold, then you, whip the Milcery. No, not painfully. Stop that. Like whipped cream. You just spin in a circle a whole bunch, and then it evolves. You're literally baking your Pokemon. And I love it. And there's 63 possible combinations of appearance for Alcremie based on what item it held, what time it is when it evolves, and even how long you spin. It's wild. It's a lot of fun. Another fun one is Poltegeist, another new Pokemon that's a ghost in a teapot. Evolving it is pretty simple. Just give it a special item and it's done. Like evolving Eevee, you give it a stone, whatever. But the really interesting thing is that you can inspect the Sinistea before it evolves, and then also the Poltegeist. And there's different versions that indicate if it's a manufactured teapot or an actual antique china pot. This has no bearing on anything in the game, but it's a fun world building thing. As I mentioned, Sword and Shield tried to do a lot, and maybe its ambition was too big, because there's loads of little things that are great, like the Sinistea pot. But then some of the big things feel like they needed a lot more attention. Like Dynamaxing only being available in the gym battles, multiplayer, and Dynamax raids that you find in the wild area. Or the fact that Dynamaxing replaces all of your moves with really linear, strategically boring, though admittedly visually impressive ones, with basically no variety. Or the affront to my eyes that is Swordward and Shieldbert, not only in how they look, but reading their names. But as you'll see later this year, I think they learned a lot from Generation 8 as they moved on to Generation 9, and I'm glad we had this stepping stone. Join me tomorrow as I talk about my 139th favorite game, where I may be a sack, but I'm also a boy.